Hello, guys. When I said Canada is fucked, I actually meant it. And I'm going to compare Canada to its closest sized economy, that is, you're right, Saudi Arabia. I'm not going to talk about religion. I'm not going to talk about the governing system. All I'm going to do is compare the numbers on these two economies because they're both resource based economies. And I want to show you guys how one economy, the way it's run, is so much more superior to the other. Again, we're just going to look at the numbers and I'll leave you guys to draw your own conclusions as to why it is happening. I have my opinion. I'm going to share that with you towards the end. But let's look at some numbers. Let's look at the reality on the ground. Saudi Arabia has the second most biggest reserves in oil, and Canada is third. It's a close third. It's not off by a huge. They both are oil economies, but Canada has a lot more natural resources other than just oil. They have lumber, they have copper, they have gold, silver, other rare earth minerals. Their land is vast. They are a Western economy. They are a much more advanced economy compared to Saudi Arabia. Yet, you'll see underlying numbers are telling us a totally different story, which on surface it doesn't make sense, but if you think through it, it does. Okay, guys, so let's get started. So now we are looking at how fast these economies are growing. So Canada is growing at 1%, and where in GDP in quarter two this year shrank by 1.6%. But on the flip side, Saudi Arabia is booming at 4.5%, and non-oil sectors are up 6.2%. Saudi Arabia is diversifying. They are getting out of oil dependence on oil. They are diversifying, and by 2030, they want to be totally independent of oil. Yes, it's going to be a big part of their economy, but it's not going to be the most important part of their economy, or the biggest portion of the economy will be something totally different other than oil. It'll be clean energy, it'll be banking sector. They want to grow. They want to grow at the model of UAE and Singapore combined. While Canada, they are lost. They don't know what they're doing. They're shrinking. Their GDP is shrinking. Their currency is collapsing. And I think it's going to go a lot further on the downside. The housing market is in free fall. Unemployment is soaring high. It's above 7.5%. It's an absolute basket case. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia, with the similar size of population, which is about 37, 38 million in Saudi Arabia and about 40, 41 million in Canada. Canada is struggling, falling apart, while Saudi Arabia sprints ahead. So now, Canada has a stable democracy. I said I'm not going to talk about government system, but is complacency within that democracy is killing Canada? Is there too much red tape? Is the government size too big? Is that what's killing Canada? Because there's free healthcare in Canada, as in tatters. I'm telling you, it's in free fall. There is free health in Saudi Arabia, but it's flourishing. You get absolute state of the art treatments when you go to their hospitals. There is free education, just like Canada, but in Saudi Arabia, it's flourishing. In Canada, it's falling apart. Now, every new family gets $150,000 towards their house, first purchase of their house. Canada, the housing market is falling apart. Nobody can afford the houses, even though it has fallen 25-30%. There are still the new buyers are not able to enter the housing market because it's so overpriced. So again, what is it that Canada doing wrong? There's a lot of things that have gone wrong in Canada, but let's keep comparing the two. Let's keep looking at these numbers. So the capita per GDP per capita in Canada is 54,000 versus 35,000 in Saudi Arabia, but PPP, which is price parity per person, is equivalent of 75,000 almost in Saudi Arabia versus 65,000 in, in Canada. So that tells you the kind of subsidies that are given in Saudi Arabia are much higher than Canada. Canada, you have housing crisis and debt levels are so high that brings the PPP down, and the debt levels in Saudi Arabia are so low that brings and drives the PPP higher. So is Canada is just an illusion? Is wealth only in statistics in Canada? Who's really ahead? Is it Canada or a so-called Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which everybody loves to blast? Again, I don't. If, anyways, the point I'm trying to make is, at this point, it's irrelevant how that country is governed, but per capita is much happier than per capita in Canada. Is much happier in Saudi Arabia compared to Canada. So now let's talk about natural resources. So Canada is resource rich, but is over reliant on oil sands, exposed to U.S. trade dependency. So now, as you can see with Donald Trump, there is a huge trade war going between US and Canada, but Canada is practically on its knees right now. But on the other hand, Saudi Arabia have played it very, very smartly, and they are diversifying out of oil, so they're not strictly reliant on the US or any other one country for their oil sales. Okay, guys, so next one is going to be an eye-opener for you guys. I'm sure you guys are not expecting this one here. In Canada, the total debt is 2.3 trillion compared to 370 billion in Saudi Arabia, almost 10 times more. Debt to GDP ratio is over 100% in Canada. Debt to GDP in Saudi Arabia is 29.9%, 30%. So that's four. They don't even in the same ballpark. So again, the Canada is drowning in debt, and because of that, it is drowning. The currency is drowning along with it, and the trade war with the U.S. is not helping Canada. And here is a thought-provoking thing: per person debt in Saudi Arabia is a little over 10,000, but per person debt in Canada is over 55,000. That's more than average household income in Canada. So Canada is drowning under its own debt. That is what is causing Canada all the grief, and the currency is in absolute free fall right now. Gold 4 years ago was 1,500 Canadian dollars. Right now, it's over 7,000. Again, gold has risen against all currencies, but the currencies like Canadian dollar and Australian dollars are fully exposed because of this. So now let's look at Canada's housing crisis. Right now, as I said, if you are a young couple, you are getting out of college and you have saved up, say, 30, 40, 50,000, you cannot own a house in Canada unless you're talking about the shoebox size condominiums that are 300 square feet, 400 square feet with 0 bedroom and hardly any living space. But on the other hand, Saudi Arabia is giving you guys or their young generation 150,000 per family to buy their first house. So who's doing better for their population? Who's doing better for their citizens? Is it Canada or is it Saudi Arabia? You tell me. All right, guys. So here is a wake-up call for Canada. They have to take care of their debt, and they have to get out of oil dependence and get out of the oil sands and expand into other areas and get out of US's shadow and create your own identity. That is what, and get rid of regulation. There is so much red tape in Canada. It is unreal. Like to make a small change to your house, it's months and months and months of wait and thousands in permits is going to cost you before you even touch anything in Canada. So there's so much red tape, so much regulation that it is choking the growth. It is choking the young generation. It is choking innovation. It is driving away all the good folks that instead should be coming to Canada are leaving Canada after they come to Canada and see that it is nothing but a mess and out of control immigration policies, that they're attracting lowest of the lowest from around the globe to come to Canada. And their cream is actually leaving Canada for the US and greener pastures like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Singapore, to a certain extent, Hong Kong, and other countries. Same thing is happening with Australia. What I'm telling you now about Canada is happening in Australia and already has happened to the United Kingdom or England. It has already happened. England is fucked. They are done. They are finished. And it's a wake up call for Canada. If they do not change their immigration policy, if they do not cut their red tape, if they do not help their young generation to acquire properties and the businesses, Canada is in for a rude awakening like England is right now. Because I'm not sure if you guys have seen England in the recent years or recently. It is an absolute disaster. It is, you go there, it looks like a third world country invaded by, I don't know, some Middle Ages barbarians. That's what England looks like. And if things do not change in Canada dramatically or Australia dramatically, it is going to look the same. So that said, all that culminates into currency and the currency debasement and the currency collapse. And I think Canadian currency is set for a collapse. Australian currency is set for a collapse. England or British pound is collapsing in front of our own eyes right now. So I think that's it. I just wanted you guys to start thinking macro, start thinking where our next long-term trades are, how to make that generational wealth by looking at these countries, by seeing what's really going on, and then bet or place trades, long-term trades, even though you may have to suffer some initial losses, or they may go against you a little bit in the short to medium term. But in the long term, they are aligned with you in making you a lot of wealth. Imagine Canadian dollar right now is sitting at around 140, 1.40 US. No, sorry, $1 equals to 1.40 Canadian. Imagine that going to say $2, say from 1.4 to 2. So that is 6,000 pips. That's the kind of, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, but these are the kinds of moves we are talking about. GDP. Imagine going from 1.30 to 1. That's 3,000 pips. Imagine Australian dollar doing the same thing, doubling from here, like going to say 30, 35, 40 cents. That's 2,000 pips, 3,000 pips. And over the time, you build these positions. Anytime there is, and it goes high, you bet against it. You keep adding to your position. You keep adding to your positions. And that's how you make that generational wealth. You make that long-term wealth. You make those big gains. And again, I'm not talking edge Forex is short-term trading. This is not what it is about whatsoever. This is about looking at the macro, looking at the big picture, setting yourself up for really, really big gains. That's it. I think that's it for now. I'll come back with another one later today or tomorrow.